When the original Ted movie came out, it instantly became one of my favorite comedies of all time. And back in 2015, Ted 2 came out, and it was quite enjoyable. Not as good as the first, not as heartfelt, not as story-focused, but man, it had some perfection when it came down to those jokes. And ever since then, I've been wanting more of Ted. The entire concept of a boy wishing on a star and his teddy bear coming to life is just pure gold, and specifically in the hands of Seth MacFarlane, who has been known for edgy and crass humor within Family Guy, American Dad, Cleveland Show, and so many more, and specifically now the Ted movies, the new Ted show that I'm reviewing today. And I just have to say that getting to review this Ted show gets me so excited, and I'm very happy to say that this show, if you are a fan of the movies, is quite enjoyable. It's not perfect, but man, if you're coming just for the humor, the jokes, and more Ted time, you are in for a delight. And I can't start out with this review when it's raining outside and we have to sing the Thunder Buddy song, because when you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder Buddy and say these magic words. Fuck you, Thunder! You can suck our dick. You can't get me cause you're just God's fought. With that now out of the way, if you didn't know, yes, again, there is a Ted series now out on Peacock. As you are watching this, all the episodes have dropped out. This is the comedic prequel to the Ted films, where Ted the Bear's moments of fame have passed, and he's now living back at home in Massachusetts with his best friend, 16-year-old John Bennett, along with John's parents, Matty and Susan, and cousin Blaire. Ted may be a lousy influence on John, but at the end of the day, he's a loyal pal who's always willing to go out on a limb for friendship. And that's about all you need to know going into this. It's a prequel to the original films, and it's very much just 8 episodes taking place within this family. And in a lot of ways, I think people may look at this and be like, oh, it's probably gonna be like a live action Family Guy. And in certain instances, it does feel like that. I think this is more in the vein and tone of a Ted 2 than per se Ted 1, where I felt like Ted 1 actually had a streamlined, heartfelt story. And Ted 2, while still having those heartfelt moments, were very much more comedical bits and feeling like a Family Guy episode. And I think that's where the second one kind of faltered a little bit, because it had so much humor and it was funny, but the story kind of just faltered a tad bit. And I think in this show, if you're just going into it wanting an R-rated sitcom with Ted and more John Bennett, that's what you get here. And starting out with my pros, and one of the biggest things I do want to talk about actually is Max Burkholder. Now, I've never seen this kid in anything, but he plays a young version of Mark Whalberg's John Bennett, and he is honestly probably one of the best parts of the entire show. In fact, I don't know where Seth MacFarlane had found this kid, but he is literally perfect casting. He reminds me of a young version of Mark Whalberg, and specifically this character, and I think he hones into that so well. As well as Seth MacFarlane as the voice of Ted is just perfection again. I think he just absolutely nails it. He knows how to play this character, and the comedic timing of Ted is always great. And speaking of Ted, just as I was blown away back when it first premiered, the visual effects on Ted are extravagant and great and very believable. That this is a talking teddy bear that walks around, curses, and has fun, and it's hard to not deny that. But I was also really pleasantly surprised by the rest of the cast, specifically Giorgia Whigham, who plays Blaire in here. This is his cousin, and she's a major part of the entire story, and at first I thought she was going to get on my nerves, but throughout the entire first season, she really made me appreciate her as a character, and I liked how she kind of started to interact and get more into the vein of Ted and John's lives. Overall, I thought it was kind of interesting, specifically how she relates back to the family. Now, what I want to say is that the mother and father in here I thought were funny, but while we didn't get a lot of the mother and father in the original movie, it's very much just a opening scene. These kind of feel like a little bit of different characters. Just personally for me, in the one little glimpse we got of them, these feel a little bit different. I like this version, but I kept going back because I just rewatched the first Ted, and I was like, these don't seem like the parents, even though it was very small, and I know this is very minuscule. It's just kind of a little bit of something that's stuck in the back of my head. It may bother other people, may not. Maybe I'm just stupid, and that was the thing bothering me. But I do think Scott Grimes, who plays Matt Bennett, and Alanna Ubach, who plays Susan in here, I thought they were hilarious, and I think they really added to the overall tone and the humor of the show, and also the heartfelt moments. Again, not as heartfelt and not as brilliantly written in terms of storytelling as the first Ted film is, but this is an extreme show that each episode is very much self-contained to the last. Nothing ever really, there is no through line or anything like that. It's Ted and John going on their adventures and their family sometimes being a part of this, and in a way it is very much live-action Family Guy into the way that it all plays out. Now, some episodes are way longer than others. In fact, I was kind of blown away when the first episode was like 52 minutes, and then the second one was like 48 minutes, and the rest were about half an hour, which made a little bit more sense. And that's when I thought every episode started getting a little bit better from the last. But it's hilarious, and it is crass, and it's raunchy, and it really does feel like the origins and the prequel of John and Ted. And I think now being able to go back and watch the movies, you kind of get this added relationship more to them. And for me, at least, it put a smile on my face. It made me laugh so hard. And that's all I cared to do from this show. I could have all my nitpicks. I can have all my little issues, which I'll talk about. But as long as I'm laughing, then I'm happy and satisfied. Because the original Ted is one of those comfort movies that I do go back to every year. I watch it once a year, and I laugh my ass off, and I enjoy myself. And now it's kind of nice that I have the original Ted, Ted 2, and now a prequel series to go back to, and I have more Ted content to enjoy, because I've always found that this was just like a gold mine that I felt like they didn't really touch into too often. I know the second film didn't do as well at the box office, but still hilarious. I think that's where I really want to say is that I actually really love the ideal and really much the tone of the entire show, because while it is very rated R, very Ted in tone, Seth MacFarlane took the idea of making a sitcom style in the 80s and 90s, but again, making it R-rated. And if you go back and watch any sitcoms during those times, they're not like that at all. And I think that's the one part that really took me back, is the way that they structured and told out the show in that style. That shouldn't be a surprise, since Seth MacFarlane, a lot of the stuff and pieces that he's always made, if you look at A Million Ways to Die in the West, Ted, or even Family Guy, a lot of these different things are structured from different things that he's ever made. Even the Orville, that very much feels like Star Trek, but for a modern day. I like that. I like what Seth MacFarlane did here as a creative mind, and I really hope this isn't the last time that we ever see Ted, because I could just keep going on adventures with him and John and be completely satisfied with it. But with that said, those are my pros, and before we get to my mixed in issues with the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as leave your thoughts down below. What's your favorite Ted film? Are you excited for the show? And of course, what's your favorite joke that Ted and John have ever made with one another? There are quite a lot, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts. But with that said, diving into my mixed aspects, I think this, again, like I've mentioned throughout this review, this very much has more of a style of Ted 2 than Ted 1. And feels very Family Guy-ish. If Family Guy is not your kind of vein and you don't really like it, I don't know if you're going to love this. And specifically, if you're not a fan of Ted, I don't know if you will either. I am, so I was just all on board. I do wish there was more of a through line with the story, but I understand what Seth MacFarlane was trying to go for. As for my issues, my only literal complaint with the entire show is sometimes the pacing is abysmal. And I mean that mostly in the first two episodes, where they are 52, 48 minutes long. This does not feel like a show that should be to that extent. 30, 36 minutes, that's the best. That's where I really think this show worked out overall. And that's where I think after the first two episodes, the rest of the show really just takes steam. The first two were just very paced terribly. There's some funny jokes there, but it definitely did not feel the completeness that I really wanted it to be, and it did harm the show quite a bit. The TV series is exactly what I wanted. I got laughs, I got some heartfelt moments, wish there was a little bit more of a through line, but truly enough, I think what really works here is Seth MacFarlane as Ted and Max Burkholder as John Bennett. He plays such a brilliantly younger version of Mark Whalberg that it really is... It's honestly kind of crazy to me that this is not, that they didn't just time travel and get a young version of Mark Whalberg, because he captures that character so well. I overall had a blast with the Ted TV series, and again, I hope this is not the last that we see of Ted, because I think this is just such a perfect concept, and it's executed in such a great way. So, all that said, I'm going to give the Ted TV series a B+. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Again, I might be a little bit biased since I love the original Ted so much, and I even enjoyed the second one, which not everyone did, but I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. Again, this is premiering on Peacock this week. Every episode, you don't gotta wait week to week. Thank you so much again, and of course, until next time, stay classy.